Come and enjoy a straightforward, humorous, and enlightened hour on quantum physics to metaphysics on the show that wants you to ask questions. It's time for Ask Patti, live with your host, Patti Conklin.
Hi, folks. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on this beautiful, beautiful evening down here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's just a little bit different as I was driving from Johnson City, Tennessee, back here to Atlanta on Monday night and hit snowstorms all across the mountains going into Asheville. I was I was afraid of the weather of what was going to be here, but everything's gorgeous, and I'd like to say hi to my co-host, Frenesa Hall, MD.
Hello.
And you got a lot of kudos this last weekend. I was speaking at the Coptic conference in Johnson City, Tennessee, and there are about 800 people there. And many, many, many people came up to me and said, you know, we like you, but we love Frenesa. And you two are just family. And so for all of you out there listening who let me have that feedback and let us know that you really do enjoy the show, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, really, thank you.
That's just awesome, you know. But yeah, you were the one in the picture here. You may not have been there speaking, but people were talking about you.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
That's always good. That's always good. But for everyone out there listening who was at the Coptic conference, I hope you have as wonderful a time as I did. And, you know, keep in touch with that website and see where different programs are going to be held and what's going to be held down here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And maybe the next class I hold down here, we can get the esteemed Dr. Hall to make an appearance and give us a little bit of an idea.
Sure.
She's blushing over here. So anyways, before we took our 2-week break, we were talking about finances and finances. We were talking about this sitting over at your house, I think, about what personal responsibility were we going to go to next,
right?
And we really talked about financial awareness and financial responsibility.
Yeah, well, you know, it has such a tremendous impact on relationships and health.
It really
people
does.
Stress over it, and then, of course, stress has its consequences to health. It tears relationships apart.
Absolutely. The number one reason for divorce is finances.
Really?
Absolutely. Across the board. Number one reason is finances. And it really affects everybody at every level, and certainly given our economic condition of the country. We're really in I don't want to say trouble, but boy, we've got some challenges going on with finances.
And then you look at the other way around, looking at how finances impact people's access to health.
Yes. Yes.
And I think oftentimes people aren't having financial difficulty. They are just doubly challenged with their health. But, you know, there are still things people shouldn't give up, because there are still things you can do that don't cost you anything.
Right.
To improve your health.
Yep, absolutely. Give me an idea. What can people do?
Well, how about walking?
Walking, sure. Get out there and walk and relieve some of the stress and just get your body moving a little bit. That's a tremendous help.
Yes. You can, and I had, it was funny, I had patients tell me that they couldn't afford their medication.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I'd look in their shirt pocket, and there'd be a pack of cigarettes.
Yes.
And I said, well, how many packs of cigarettes do you smoke in a day? Oh, a pack to a pack and a half. And back then, it was $2 a pack. So I'm like, okay, so that's $2 to $3 a day.
Right.
I'm like, your medicine only costs $30 a month. That's 3 months of medicine and 1 month of cigarettes.
Very true. There's always something that we can pretty much cut back on if we really need to.
And it comes down to choices. We've talked about that.
Absolutely.
You know, you can't complain to me about not being able to afford your medicine if you're paying for cable TV.
That's right. That's right.
And the thing is, it's not that. I mean, have cable TV, and I like cable TV.
Oh, we
and
love
I
our
don't- you know,
television. Yeah.
It's not that. It's just that what becomes the priority?
Priority.
Cable
Absolutely.
TV, Starbucks coffee every day,
Right.
eating out.
Right.
If we really stop and we look at our lives and what we're spending our money on
Right.
and prioritize, we can find some wiggle room.
Right.
I mean, it's a sacrifice, and don't get me wrong, certainly it's a sacrifice. You get used to cable TV and
Right.
Starbucks
Right.
coffee in the morning.
Right. But I remember as a kid growing up in upstate New York, both of my parents worked, but we
Me
were
too.
still on government assistance. We were still on, government cheese and dried milk. I'll never get over dried milk that you added water to. And, my dad and I, for Sunday afternoon meal, we always had bread, and we sliced up onions and heated up some of that dried milk with water and poured it over our bread and onions, and that was our meal. So I know that we do get in situations in life where there really isn't much wiggle room. I was watching John McCain today or yesterday, watching a rerun on television where he was talking about stopping prescription payments, prescription coverage for anybody over making $80,000 a year. Well, in this day and age, $80,000 doesn't really go that far.
Well, it's plus, there are drugs that are $200 a month.
Yes. Yes.
Even if you make $80,000 a year,
that's right. It still adds up.
Is a pinch.
It's a pinch, and you do have to cut back quite a bit to be able to do that.
What's wrong with a sliding scale?
Exactly.
I volunteer at the Gwinnett Community Clinic once a month, and it's $10 to come in. You have to bring your tax thing, and basically, people who don't qualify for government assistance,
right,
but don't have insurance and have certain income levels,
right,
can come to the clinic, get medication,
right,
CAT scans,
right,
blood work,
right,
for no additional charge.
Absolutely, and a lot of physicians offer a sliding scale if you're paying cash. If you don't have insurance and you're paying up front, you can get anywhere from 40 to 60% off your bill if you pay it then. If you pay it then, that day.
It's true.
And it's worth saving the money for. But, to go back to your earlier comment, there's a lot of things that we can be doing to assist in financial stress and how it affects our health. The walking, meditation, being able to meet with friends and just, and not have to go out for dinner, but just have a home-cooked meal.
Right. Well, eating at home instead of fast food. I mean, fast food meal at lunch is going to be $5 minimum.
Minimum. That's right.
You could probably make a ham sandwich at home with an apple for $1.
Yeah, exactly.
Takes a little more effort, but healthier for you.
Right.
And saves you money.
Right. Right. It's really pulling in the reins and going back to what you were saying, prioritizing, what's really going to be important. And it's not that there aren't those of us, I'll include myself, who don't make poor decisions in finances.
We all do.
All of us do.
I've certainly made some whoppers.
I've made some of my whoppers, but it's coming back again to personal responsibility.
Right. You own up to it.
You own up.
And then you change the behavior.
And you deal with it. You don't ignore it. Because when we ignore it, it gets that much bigger. And the stress gets that much harder on our health and our marriages and relationships and so forth. And those of us who are single, it makes me like, I don't want to go out that much. I'm not feeling that comfortable about things. And it's just that we really have to come back into awareness because you can have the domino effect so quickly, so quickly.
It's interesting you say that because I have a new client that I'm going to see in a few weeks, and it sounds like she had all these different things happen over time. And I asked her to write a timeline go back to when you were healthy, and then do a timeline of
Wow.
physical, medical, and emotional events, traumas that happened. And it's interesting because I had another patient do it, and when you just look at the different things, because it would be things like, okay, I got sick and I was sick for a month, I had mono or whatever, and then it could be, got a divorce.
Right.
And it's amazing how you'll see this cluster of events. It's like a couple of things happen in a row, and then it's just like downhill, like,
Yeah.
And I think finances is one of those things that can fuel that fire because it has such an effect on every aspect of your life.
It has such a wide-ranging field. But, it's amazing to me when I talk to someone about their health, how they really want to give me their whole medical background. They want to give me everything that they've had, and then they'll come back to me going, well, I need a discount from you because I've been so sick and I've been paying so much out for my health, to different doctors and different alternative practitioners that I need a discount from you. And it's like, well, no, wait a minute. Back up a little bit. You've got all of this cluster of things that you feel that you perceive as problems. The reality is you're holding on to it. You're holding on. Have you really done anything to help yourself? And from a practitioner standpoint, why should I not have food on my table because you are spending money elsewhere? It's about coming back to that prioritizing.
I mean, what does what you spend on someone else have to do with you?
Exactly.
I mean, that's just
exactly.
Like, do you not value my service?
Exactly. And if you don't value my service,
that's okay.
Then that's wonderful. That's okay. Continue what you're doing. But
right.
if what you're doing isn't working,
right.
then cut. Cut. And the other thing that just a lot of our listening audience, I know, uses a lot of supplements, uses a lot of herbs. This is a Pattyism, and I may be totally wrong, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway.
Let's see if it sticks.
Yeah, really. But my thing is, if you're not ill right now, and you're taking over 3 different supplements a day, you're in fear. You're afraid that something's going to happen because the reality is your body's changing from day to day. And it doesn't need 12 different supplements and vitamins and everything every single day.
Typically not, if you're a healthy
If you're
person.
healthy.
And I would say that what I have encountered is people taking, a boatload of supplements, and it's like, well, why are you taking this and why are you taking that? Did you know that this and this have similar ingredients?
Exactly.
And so what I've found is that people are out, they're searching, but they don't have any supervision.
Right.
And they are taking all these things with overlapping
right.
And
they don't need to be.
No, they don't. Now, I think that when you have, I take about 4, but I've got knee issues.
Right.
I've got a family history of dementia, so I'm making sure I'm getting my omega-3s, multivitamin.
Right.
And I take immune system support formula.
I don't consider a multivitamin included in that.
Okay,
that's just something that we should be doing every day.
There are specific things going on. I know that I have a relatively stressful lifestyle, as you know.
Yes, you
burning
do.
the candle both ends. So I'm getting better.
Yeah.
And so, using my knowledge and kind of selecting the things. But, you get past 4.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Right.
But,
Right.
But this is where using a healthcare professional knowledgeable in supplements is really beneficial.
Exactly.
Because most of the stuff over the counter, 99% probably, and I'm just throwing that number out, but so much of what's available over the counter is poor quality.
Right.
Okay? And then number 2, there's a lot of overlap in ingredients.
Right.
So, working with someone to help you select high-quality products. Oftentimes, there are combination products that I have access to, so we can take this, this, and this, and it's now just in this.
Right. Exactly.
And so you may pay more per bottle,
Yeah.
but you're getting more for
Yeah.
your money. And so really using a healthcare person, see, this saves you money.
Right. Exactly.
Because it's
it
much
really
more
does.
efficient, and you're really getting sort of your money's worth.
And your body's
out of
getting
those-
what it needs.
Right. That's getting into your body.
It's getting into your body,
So
and
sometimes spending some money to work with someone who does this for a living
right.
saves you in the long run in the sense of you're not taking a product that 25% of it gets into your system, which is a
Exactly.
total waste of money.
Exactly.
And you're not taking a bunch of different things that you don't need.
Well, we have the illusion. We have the illusion that if you're taking all sorts of supplements, you can take whatever you want to take. You know, people never think about how they interact with each other the same way drugs interact. We have a much better idea of how prescription medication
That's
interacts.
because drugs are more like the sledgehammer,
Exactly.
and supplements are more subtle than that.
But they still came from exactly the same place originally.
They're just more potent, concentrated in the form of drugs.
Exactly.
And so typically you're going to be safe with most vitamins and supplements. However, they're not completely safe when taken incorrectly. Water. You can kill yourself drinking water.
Right. Right.
You can kill yourself with oxygen. If you breathe in 100% oxygen, you will die.
Right.
You will have all sorts of consequences.
Yeah.
And so taking the time, spending the money to get the expert advice
Right.
to streamline what you're doing
Right.
ultimately is more cost-effective in the long
Right.
run.
Right. And that doesn't necessarily mean, I don't think you're talking about the individual working the herb shop that's just been there for the,
No.
5 weeks.
No. I'm talking about a nutritionist.
Right.
A lot of chiropractors are well-versed.
Mm-hmm.
Some allopathic physicians, people along those lines, people who have some training.
Right. Right.
You know, there's just so much junk out there that you can really waste the money. I've had
And you do waste a lot of money.
You know,
It's
I've had
expensive.
patients who started using the supplements that I distribute, Amerisciences, the multivitamin, and they'll call back and say, I feel so much better. I can't believe
Right.
this. And I'm like, I think it's because the bioavailability. You have a 95% of what's on that label actually gets into your system. Whereas the average for over-the-counter supplements is 25 to 50%.
Right.
You're not necessarily, you're not getting it.
And it takes a lot longer. And
Right.
so people aren't getting, quick enough results to make a difference, and then they feel awful, and it just spirals out of control. It just spirals.
Let's talk about food.
Yeah.
People will say, oh, gosh, that organic food is so expensive. Well, the diseases you get from toxins in food are pretty expensive, too.
Right.
And I'm not saying, necessarily go all organic because it does add up.
Right.
However, when you continue to do fast food and buy food that's in a box,
right,
then to me, you can't complain about the price of organic ready food.
Right.
If you're going to go buy hamburger helper.
Right. Right.
It's
But I know for someone like me, it is hard. It is challenging to get time to get to a farmer's market or someplace where we're going to buy organic food.
They've got some organic food
in the grocery stores
now. And so the thing is, you just do some.
But what if we're in the inner city? You grew up in one of the boroughs of New York City.
You can get anything in New York. Anything.
Yeah, I guess if you look around enough, you probably can. I'm just thinking of all the mom and pop stores.
Then you do the best with what you have.
With what you have.
And I think that's where, making sure you have healthier habits really comes into play. So you're not smoking. You're not drinking excessively.
Right.
You're not, frying your food.
I talked to a woman today who had done a cellular a few months ago. And she called today, and she's like, well, I've just been having this twitch in my eye for the last 2 weeks, and I'm really, I'm anxious about it. What's going on? And we talked a little bit further, and she had taken out a gym membership, but she hadn't been going. So she was going to go to her doctor to get a written reason as to why she hadn't been to the gym so she could get her refund. And I said, no.
Go to the
You
gym.
already paid for the gym. Go to the gym. Go to the gym because what I'm looking at is massive anxiety. And you need to be at the gym.
Okay. Now let's just talk about a little responsibility here.
Yeah.
The doctor is not going to write you a note
Right.
unless you have a real medical problem that prevents you from going to the gym.
That's going to prevent you from going to the gym.
Don't bring the doctor into...
But my point was, you had to pay to go to the doctor to get a written, whether the doctor would or not. So you're still looking at a $7,500 hit to go to the doctor.
Well,
$75.
Yeah, and the gym membership is probably $100.
Yeah, but the point is,
go to the gym.
If you're doing a cellular because of anxiety or anxiety, stress, that kind of stuff, you need to be in the gym working out because you need to start, exercise, as we both know, and we just like anybody else has our mindset that we need to be at the gym. We don't always get there.
Right. But we get back there.
But we get back there. Or we, do whatever.
Yeah, and I just want to say to folks, we are not perfect. We are not here on the show saying, do this, do that, because, we struggle with things as well.
Absolutely. We're human, and we've got our stuff, and that's where the friendships come in. When you're working with a friend and you're being guided towards, maybe going on a better diet or, exercising more, that's where good friends really come in because they can do a balance and check, and kind of encourage you or, and there's certainly times where we get on each other's case going, you're doing what? And but you had a nice stress release tonight. You've been really pushing hard for the last couple of weeks. You've had a lot of things going on, and you've really been burning the candle at both ends. So what'd you do tonight before you came over?
I went and jammed with my music buddy.
Went and jammed for
probably 2 hours.
2 hours, and you look so relaxed. I mean, for you getting your bass guitar out and just sitting there jamming with your music buddies,
right?
Those 2 hours can erase the last 3 weeks of massive stress.
Right.
Just that amount of time. We look at it this way. It takes months, literally months, and sometimes years to build a high-rise building. But it can only take minutes to demolish it. And you need to look at your body that way. It takes determination and time to get your body working. Nobody's got the quick pill. Nobody's got the magic wand.
If I had that, we would both be size 8.
Exactly. And that probably ain't going to happen in our lifetime because I don't think I was born a size 8.
Over it.
But the reality is we can destroy it.
Right.
Very quickly.
But
much
you know
quicker.
what? That's the miracle of the human body. It's genetically programmed to heal itself.
Yes.
We just
absolutely
have to give it what it needs.
Yes.
And being healthier is cheaper than being sick.
Oh, so much so.
And that's where the allopathic medical world has really fallen down because everything is geared to finding illness and treating it.
Exactly.
As opposed to keeping you healthy.
Yes, the proactive approach. We're going to take a break now because it is 28 after, I think. And so, folks, we'd love to have your phone calls. Feel free to call. We're going to go to break, and we'll see you on the other side. Hi, folks. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. This is Patti Conklin and Frenesa Hall, MD. I guess I should say Patti Conklin, MI, and an MD. Medical Intuitive and the MD. We're the MIMD team. But we're talking tonight about finances and how it affects our health and how it affects our relationships. And really, you know, I think our whole theme of our show has been personal responsibility. I mean, it just always seems to come back down to personal responsibility and personal choice. And when finances start getting rough, and sometimes we get the physical ailment, you know, we get hit with a catastrophic disease that rips apart our finances. You know, it's not that our catastrophic exactly. They happen. They do happen, and people find themselves in really tough situations where they really do have to start making choices and so forth. But you had a really interesting acronym during the break, so why don't you share that with us?
I went to a meeting for a business opportunity last weekend, and one of the speakers who had come from nothing, basically, you know, working class and all that, and was, you know, had kids and, you know, was making a better life, but was on that treadmill.
Right.
And he talked about this particular business opportunity and that he embraced it, and he's become very successful. And he said that, you know, that his definition of poor, it has changed, and it was passing over opportunity repeatedly,
which is so cool.
And it just struck me between the eye, because so often we have opportunities to make changes that have an impact on us financially.
Right.
But
and health-wise.
On health-wise, but out of fear or whatever, we say, oh, I could never do that.
Right.
I can't do that.
Right.
You know, and quite frankly, if you say you can't, you can't.
You can't. That's right. Remember what fear is, that false evidence appearing real, but it's also forgetting every available resource.
There we go.
And that resource is the confidence you have inside of yourself. You know, one of the things I lectured about this weekend is we always talk about we're body, mind, spirit. And in the metaphysical world, we say spirit's most important, and your mind is the second most important, because we're so brilliant, and our body is the temple that houses the two. And I think about it a little bit differently. I say, you know what, spirit's the most important, but body is the vehicle that spirit speaks through. So if you've got a pain somewhere, you've got a stomach indigestion, you better be looking at your emotional base of how you've been thinking the last 12 hours. And your mind is the least important, because it allows us almost all the time, I mean, a great part of the time, to go into fear. And I can't, and I'm not qualified, and I shouldn't, and I don't have the experience. And we use our brain towards the negative instead of the positive. It holds us back.
You said it earlier. You know, we have to get out of our own way.
Yeah.
You know, I introduced this business opportunity to someone that has worked for me, drawing blood for me, going out some patients for that.
Right.
Who I basically helped her get a job.
Right.
And she's very good at it. But it's a job, and it's not quite covering the bills and things.
Right.
And so knowing that she needed something, I called her up and I said, you know, I want you to come take a look at this, because you might be interested. It might be something that you think you can do, and I think there's great potential for you to be able to create another income stream in your part-time spare time after your regular job.
Right.
No, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you haven't even seen it.
Right.
I'm like, I was like, wait a minute. I said, I've barely given you a description of it.
Right.
You haven't looked at it, what it actually entails.
And you're already closing the door.
That you can't do it. the very person who needs an opportunity.
Right.
So it's like, okay, poor. The definition of poor just kind of rang through my head.
Right.
And the thing is, it wasn't about whether she did this or not.
It was closing the door before she even had the information.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was setting up her own, not getting out of her own way to look at the opportunity.
Right. And so then, therefore, she was, if that's her mindset, then she will always be
right on that edge. Sure.
Exactly.
Of living month to month.
You can't make a breakthrough without getting out of your comfort zone.
That's really it, isn't it?
And learning,
getting out of the comfort zone.
New skills. You have to change. I've listened to this. There's a CD by a guy named Jim Rohn. I think it's Rohn.
Uh-huh.
And the name of the CD is Building Your Network Marketing Business. But it's really beyond that. He really talks about lessons for life. He said, it's not the wind that blows, because the same wind blows on everybody. The wind of opportunity, the wind of disappointment, of difficulty. He goes, it's the set of the sail.
Right.
Not the wind, it's the set of the sail. So the same wind is on everyone. So what's the difference between someone being successful and someone not? I mean, if you have to tack, fine. You still get there. Might take you longer.
Right.
Right. But that comes down to how you set the sail, not the wind. And I think so many of us let the wind dictate where we're going.
Yeah.
As opposed to us saying, you know what, that happened, and that's in the past, but now I'm resetting my sail
and
for
being,
this goal.
And being willing to understand that in the past is in the past. That don't allow what happened in the past to define you as you are now. And I'm constantly saying that to people after they've done a cellular or we're working in depth, and they'll say, well, when my fibromyalgia, and I'm like, you mean in the past when your fibromyalgia? It's not an issue now, and so why are you still bringing it into the present conversation? And I have to throw this out. Dr. Hall here, we call her the queen of the networking machine because that's how we know her, as the queen of the networking. She knows everybody and everything, but you thrive on that. And I think one of the things that's really important is to understand ourselves enough to know what is our comfort zone and what we're confident in pushing beyond our comfort zone. We know I'm a seclusionary person.
But we dragged you out, so
you've dragged me out beyond my comfort zone. Stay up until 10 o'clock at night. Get a standing ovation. That's pretty huge. But it's understanding yourself enough to know when to start pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Because if you're not willing to push yourself out of your comfort zone, you've got issues. And it's not that we have to push ourselves every moment, but we do have to push. We do have to say, okay, this is where life is, and this is what I need.
Right.
And I think what's important, at least from my perspective and in my teaching, is set your goal, but don't set your 1, 2, 3 steps of how to get there. Stay focused on the goal and just flow to it.
Right.
Because so much of the time when we set a goal and set our 1, 2, 3 steps of how to get there, we can only base the 1, 2, 3 steps based upon our history. And if the history hasn't worked before, chances are it's not going to work again. So that's moving outside of the comfort zone, saying, you know what, I don't really know how I'm going to get to this goal, but I am going to look at every opportunity, everything that comes to me as an opportunity to move towards that goal, and go into items that have not been in my comfort zone before.
Well, look at them.
Absolutely.
It's not that I didn't jump out as the networking queen.
No, but
it has been developed over time. I mean, I had to step out of my comfort zone, and not my comfort zone, but I'll call it my ego zone.
Yeah.
Because, when you get your MD, people blow a lot of smoke up your...
Yep. That place.
And you start to believe it.
Yeah.
And I think many of my colleagues are trapped in that mindset that, well, I'm a doctor, I don't do that.
Right.
And you know what? I'm a doctor, but ultimately I'm not really different from anybody else.
Right.
You're
still a woman, you're still a person, you're still in human form.
And if I don't work, I don't get paid.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is not only did you have to move out of your ego comfort mode, you had to move out of your financial comfort mode, because the reality is, in having an office, having your own office, your own practice, where you were putting in countless hours, you had no room to adjunct into a network position.
No.
You never would have been able to do it, because you wouldn't
barely have time to come home and do
be with your partner.
Else. Exactly.
Sure. So you made a choice. You had to step outside of your financial comfort zone.
Yes.
You stepped outside of your ego comfort zone. You stepped outside of your who I am as a woman comfort zone. The great basketball player that you are. But it's huge.
And, this is kind of funny. I made the decision to sell my practice in August and signed the papers December 31st.
Wow.
2001. Guess when I told my parents?
When?
December 31st, after the ink was dry. Because
absolutely,
your parents, they go around the neighborhood and brag on you.
That's right. You're an
and
MD.
then your neighbors tell you all about it, and they're tied in.
They've got an investment.
Exactly.
They've got a vested interest in their child being an MD.
So me selling my practice was like letting them down, but I had to.
Yeah.
I mean, it was killing me. I had to. But it was a huge decision to say, this quote-unquote American dream, be a doctor, have your own practice, blah, 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 was not working for me.
Right.
But I know so many people, so many doctors that I know still keep at that same thing. And what's the definition of insanity?
Yeah. What is it?
Doing the same thing over and over.
Doing the same thing over and over.
Outcome. I mean, they're just still at it.
Yeah.
And it was a leap outside of my comfort zone. But it was a leap of faith. It was a leap of, you know what, there has got to be a better way, and I will never find it if I stay in this situation.
Right.
Because opportunities, and I look back, opportunities came to me all the time.
Right.
But I didn't have the time or the wherewithal to recognize them.
Right. Right. I mean, that's what becomes so profound. Is what is that joke that went around a while ago, or that message that said, there was a flood going through the Midwest, and it was hitting this guy's house, and he climbed up on the roof, and he was praying, and pretty soon a boat came by, and they're like, let's help you, and he's like, no, I'm praying, God's going to send me a message, and then a helicopter showed up, and God's going to save me, and then a helicopter shows up, and he's like, God's going to save me. And pretty soon, I can't remember, he dies.
He dies, he goes to heaven.
And he says, God, why didn't you save me? And God's like, I sent the boat, I sent the helicopter. I mean, what more do you want? And so we think at times, and I'm kind of, half jesting about that. Well, I'm fully jesting about that. But the bigger picture is, when you let go of your practice, sold your practice, you continued to be an MD, but you looked at innovative ways to create something that was not going to be the bane of your existence.
Right.
And you created mobile medicine, which is mobile-medicine.net. See, that was a good segue. But you knew it was killing you.
Right.
For me, I was director of Canine Companions for Independence, and I was in charge of the Southeast region. And I did have a visitation from God and was told, you take your family, you move to Hartwell, Georgia, and you fully begin walking the path that I asked you to walk as a child.
So you didn't get the boat and the helicopter?
I didn't get the boat and the well, I mean, that was a definite message, but I could have ignored it, right? Mm-hmm. But instead, I took the leap of faith based on that. I wasn't sick. I was making great money. My family was happy.
Yeah.
We weren't really stressed.
Yeah.
But within 5 minutes, I called my boss in Santa Rosa, California, and said, it's March 23rd. I'm resigning effective July 15th. And he said, where are you going? And I said, Hartwell, Georgia. And he said, where is that? I said, I don't have a clue. I need to go home and look at a map. But that's where I'm taking my family. That was 12 years ago. And within months,
and you know
business was gone.
Sometimes what happens, too, is we're looking for an opportunity, but it has to look a certain way.
Exactly. We get this preconceived
like this,
notion.
Then I don't even look at it. No.
Absolutely. Well, we start getting stressed about finances. I had a great paying job. We weren't lacking anything. It wasn't like, oh my goodness. But the idea of moving to Hartwell and beginning this work that God asked me to do, and I get there and there's 16 Baptist churches within a 3-mile radius, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're never going to accept me. I was embraced, and within 2 months, business was starting all over the world. Wow. I didn't have to do any split marketing campaign. It just started because I listened. We're going to go to break because we're at that time of quarter of again, and we'll finish up with this when we get back on the other side. So continue to join us. We love being able to talk and have you with us tonight. Thanks so much. We are just having a great conversation tonight, and I know we're enjoying it. I hope those of you out there listening are thinking about life a little bit differently and what's important, because opportunity does come in so many different ways. Either we're being pressed to change, i.e. our work is making us sick, or we're getting so stressed out we're starting to have declining health, or we have what we consider to be wonderful visitations and opportunities that are staring us in the face. Makes it clear. People will say to me, how do you know it was really a visitation? And I always laugh and say, you know what, when I have a visitation like that, you can't not do it. I mean, me calling my boss 5 minutes after and quitting my job, that was huge, because my then husband was going, you what? I mean, what are we doing? And I'll never forget, Daniel and Matthew were sitting at the table. And he looked at Daniel and Matthew and said, what are you guys thinking? And Daniel was 12 years old, 11 years old. And he looked at him and said, you know what? If Mom had a visitation and that's what she was told, then that's what we do. And my kids are not particularly, they're more kind of Buddhist-oriented, but they know my faith and my belief. And if that's what I was told, then it wasn't open for conversation. It was not open for discussion. And certainly that first year was rough. But after that first year, it just was.
Right.
And so I think that it's taking the time, and you said it very aptly during break, of just taking the time to consider, to open up your mind and not make it a closed door just because you're being pushed outside of your comfort zone. Now, that doesn't mean that every situation is going to fit.
Right. But you don't know it won't fit if you never looked at it.
If you never look at it. And I know that there are times when you have, wonderful things going on, and I sit back and we talk about whether or not I'm going to get involved. And, for the most part, I'm like a no, and because of my travel.
But you listen.
I listen.
And you're fascinated by it.
Exactly. And I leave it open, looking at, will it fit within my dynamics of my travel and my work schedule.
Exactly.
But you know what? If work life got to the point, and there's times, you've heard me threaten, a lot of people have heard me threaten out there, that I'm just going to stop doing what I'm doing and get a blue vest at Walmart and just become a greeter and just stand out there and just do something that just, that takes the stress off. But if I ever felt like my task was done, in terms of what I feel I'm here to do, I would certainly be looking at all sorts of different dynamics because, quite frankly, I like my lifestyle. And I don't really want to be in a financial situation where I need to cut back. But, growing up the way I did, I know how to cut back. I know what I would need to do in order to make it work.
I lived on ramen noodles and tea
my goodness,
a long time.
Ramen noodles and just
mac and cheese,
and
and special occasion with tuna. That was
that was huge. Yeah. That was huge. But, so the point we're really making tonight, folks, is really pay attention to your financial health because it really across the board affects everything. Affects absolutely everything. If you're financially stressed, you don't digest your food well because you're so stressed out. You start having health issues. You start having relationship issues. Even when we're not in relationships, it doesn't mean that it's not going to affect because we're so stressed. Our friends are going to get really sick of hearing us complain about the fact that we don't have money. So, I think that it's just really paying attention and opening up the door. There was a guy years ago, I can't remember the author, but he had written a book, and he suggested that every single person should be made to change jobs every 7 years, that they should be put in a different position if you're in the same company, within a different position within the company, because it helps teach us how to get out of our comfort zone and to realize how much we can really learn. That we're not just stuck in a rut. And it forces us to get outside of our comfort zone. Look at, I've had children. You haven't had children. But I'll tell you what, you get used to a lifestyle, and then all of a sudden you have a kid, and it just changes everything about your security. All of a sudden, you're responsible for this little baby who's just going to eat, and you've got to change diapers. That's it. Yep. That's all that's going to happen, and you're responsible for all of that. And the financial stress that puts on you, either as a single mother or within a relationship, it's phenomenal. It is just absolutely phenomenal.
And I think, and of course, it's going to shape the decisions you make.
Sure.
But, it shouldn't shape the things you look at.
No. And if you've raised a baby for 18 years and you've been doing the same old to, get this child off to college and whatever, don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. I remember when I was living in Michigan, I think I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again briefly. I was in between jobs, and I looked at the newspaper, and I saw this job for an activities director in a nursing home. And so I thought, well, that would be kind of interesting. So I sent in a resume, and they actually called me for an interview. And I went in for the interview, and the administrator looked at me, and we talked for a few minutes, and he looked at me and he said, have you actually ever been in a nursing home? And I'm like, no, never walked in one. This is the first time. And he started chuckling. He called me in for 5 interviews. And on the 5th interview, he looked at me and he said, I have no clue as to why I keep calling you back. But out of everyone who's had experience, you're the only one who I think, because of your lack of experience, can get this department the way I want it. And he gave me the job. Mm-hmm. And I got the department all shaped up because he gave me the same status as the director of nursing. So we went head-to-head for months because I didn't care what her nurses were used to doing. I just know that what I needed her nurses to do. And I had the same position, so that's the way it was. And after a few months, I had that all set. And then I said, okay, I'm a little bored here because I've got the department all changed around the way you wanted it. And he said, I need a non-denominational chapel. I said, cool. So within, Second Force County, in the state of Michigan. Within 6 months, we had a non-denominational chapel that was built on the nursing home, and I'm like, okay, now I'm bored. And he looked at me, and he's like, I can't think of any more major products. And I said, well, it's time for me to go then, because now I'm bored, and I've done what you needed me to do. But, you know, it was just maybe it was just the boldness of walking out going, yeah, no, I don't,
maybe it's,
but I know how to organize people.
But also, I have found that sometimes when you come in with experience,
yes,
you bring baggage.
Exactly.
Because you think everything needs to be this way.
Exactly. And I was so naive, I had no clue.
You're like, what?
Whatever.
And sometimes that's what's needed.
That's right. That's right. So we're down to the last minute and a half here.
Okay.
And,
well, then give us our contact information.
Contact Frenesa is mobile-medicine.net, and she's wonderful for working with you over the phone, doing an overview of what your doctors are prescribing right now or what supplements you're taking, and just kind of giving you an overall health, in addition to just giving you some good sound advice. And mine is PattiConklin.com, and Patti's with an I, and teach all over the place. Go to the website and check out both of our stuff going on.
Actually, you know, I'm building up my Hello World site.
Yeah.
So for more personal information, it's M as in Mary, D as in dog, wellnessproductions.com. And I've got some of our podcasts loaded on it.
Yes, wonderful.
I've got, actually, I loaded one of my friend's songs.
Yeah.
So check that out, too. It's a work in progress, though.
Great, wonderful. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've enjoyed every single minute. We hope you have, too. And we'll see you next week. We're looking forward to speaking with you again.